Alright, so hi everyone, I'm in Education Cross Borders with Ms. Dyson, as I'm sure most of you know, which we examine inequities and differences in education domestically and internationally. So basically I had a lot of different changes of course in my presentation this year, or my project this year rather. Basically first I wanted to do a Hispanic achievement gap, and then while I was researching that I found out about bilingual education as a possible solution to this. But really those two things were in a way too large and also too narrow for me to do here on campus. So I changed my my final project to an international culture guide, which we'll get to at the end, but I'm still going to take everyone through my research and process. So my first point of interest was the Hispanic achievement gap, which is a major issue in America. It's the largest gap between Caucasians and Hispanics. It's larger than African American and Hispanics. It's larger than every other gap, and which is a major concern because Hispanics are the largest the fastest growing ethnicity in America, and by the year 2050 they'll actually be a majority in America, if you don't use that term. But so before I came here, I was a student at Chambersburg Area School District, and Chambersburg has a large population of Hispanics. Disproportionately so, because there's a lot of Puerto Ricans in Chambersburg. So I saw firsthand the ways in which Hispanics were disadvantaged in Chambersburg, which is that they were usually locked up in ESL classrooms for most of the time. If they weren't proficient in English, they'd be locked up in ESL classrooms, and the point of an ESL classroom, English as a second language, is to be reintroduced to the normal population, but they were never reintroduced. Usually they dropped out before they were ever reintroduced into the normal student population of being proficient in English. And the Hispanic Achievement Gap doesn't just focus on language, it's also, it's not just language that's a concern, there's also the low graduation rate, and then they're least proficient in the subjects. But here I have some causes. So our causes are language learners, which is what I chose to focus on. So 35% of Hispanic 4th graders and 20% of Hispanic 8th graders were English language learners, which means pretty much they aren't proficient in English quite yet. Also, they claim to be bullied, which is, I'd say that's a little bit, that's more common in Latino students than other students, especially in America right now with like all the xenophobia and stuff going on. Another major problem is the poverty issue. Poverty is endemic in Hispanic communities. But I chose to focus on the English language learner portion of it, which brought me to a possible solution, which is bilingual education. So bilingual education is the process of teaching in both English and, in this case, Spanish. And this is so that there's not this culture gap between the student's home and the student's school, so that it's more conducive to learning, and also they learn the English necessary to succeed in the workforce. So San Francisco has the most successful bilingual education program in the country, but bilingual education does face some barriers. A lot of states actually parents have to sign a waiver for their children to be educated bilingually because, well, the states are a little xenophobic nowadays to like the governments about as far as immigration and all that goes. But also the parents don't want their children to face the stigmas that they faced with speaking Spanish and not speaking English. So they think, oh, I'm just going to teach my child English and not Spanish at all, which is a major issue because that deprives the student from their culture and from career opportunities. I mean, there's a lot of career opportunities out there for bilingual people. So, but the most successful one is San Francisco. 30% of San Francisco's English language learners are enrolled in bilingual education programs. And these bilingual education programs, studies have shown that these bilingual education programs are very effective. By the 6th grade, English language learners in this program are as proficient in English as their native English-speaking peers, which is very good, and that's So this shows that bilingual education works a lot better than just teaching English as a second language and not focusing at all on their native language, because when you focus on their native language, you also have some culture going on there, which helps them feel more comfortable in the learning environment and really helps expedite learning. So, but as I said, my research was great to do and share, but it wasn't really conducive to me making an action project on. So, but I still wanted to help people adjust to this sort of, help them with a culture gap, and help them make learning easier for them. So the culmination of my Springboard project is the culture guide, which I can pass out now before I talk about it a little bit. And there's this one. Oh, you're here. Okay. So these aren't professionally made or anything. I made these in the library myself, but hopefully in the future, maybe we can do something. So there's a little bit, we had some issues, like we can't print them back on the back side, so they're only one side is printed on. But anyway, so I wanted to help people feel more comfortable in the culture to make learning easier for them. So I made this pamphlet, and how I made this pamphlet is basically, it's very simple. I emailed the international students of Mercersburg, of which we have about 100, and I got 31 responses, and they were just offering any parts of advice that they had, like, it could be literally anything as you flip through the book. And so, although I've never been an international student, I can imagine that it must be a major exercise in character building, and I think we can all agree that it's harder than being a domestic student. Even though many domestic students have to travel, they don't have to adjust to a new culture. So, international students face several challenges in their academic studies at Mercersburg. Some of the challenges that they face, based on studies, are that they have inadequate English proficiency, unfamiliarity with American culture, lack of appropriate study skills or strategies, academic learning anxiety, low social self-efficacy, financial difficulties, and separation from family and friends. So there's really a whole host of issues that plague international students that don't plague domestic students as much. So, so this booklet was basically to help international students adjust to this new American culture and make them feel more comfortable in their first few weeks here, just as like it would be like distributed to them in their first days on campus, like pre-season, just as a way to get them like up to speed and feel that they're already part of the community, like connecting with other international students. So yeah, I'm happy that I was able to do something albeit small for the community of Mercersburg. And yeah, now I'll take questions.
So what was the question that did you pose a question?
It wasn't, I didn't really pose a question. It was more like, do you have a piece of advice?
Oh, okay.
Basically, I was like, do you have anything that you want to tell incoming international students? Which could be a piece of advice, a warning in some cases. They give like a warning, but it's just anything they wanted to tell other international students.
And did you include every response, or did you go through and deem some not helpful, or how did you come up with
most of I think all of the responses are included, except for some people gave me multiple things, and like some of the multiple things weren't appropriate, but everyone that sent a response has one in there, so.
So on page 1, you will say this was created.
Oh, what did I say?
This created.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
Yeah, and then on page 11, you split up the word important, which might not...
Yeah, that's a formatting issue, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say, I would not start probably different too, because I feel bad for people who can listen to the language and like
Yeah,
that.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, see, it was pretty difficult to make this, which is why I wanted to make the, just have the content basically, and then make it professionally rated like Mercersburg printing or something. But it's just like a prototype, I guess. Like,
It's a really good
it has
prototype.
like the content in it.
It's really
Whatnot.
good.
I'm wondering when international students come and, we're under the impression that they're here to become more proficient in English and studies, but when they're with their peers from their home country, they're often speaking their native language. How do you feel about that? Do you think, like, at the lunch table or on the dinner table, like right now we have 3 Ukrainian students sitting at our table, which is really interesting that that's happened, but they're often speaking to each other in their native tongue.
Yeah.
And so we keep reminding them to speak English, but is there certain places where that should be acceptable?
Well, I actually got very different responses from people. Some people said that in the book, that no, don't speak English, it makes other people uncomfortable, and like you shouldn't like make other people uncomfortable. You should try to speak English when you're around other people that don't speak your native tongue. But then again, some other people said speak your native language, it makes you feel more comfortable. But I think where the line like should be drawn is just like how do I say it? Just when you're with people that don't speak your native tongue, you should speak the language that everyone speaks, just as a manners thing. But I mean, if you're with people that also speak your native tongue, and you want to speak that, and it makes you feel more comfortable, then especially while you're adjusting, I think that's great.
Maybe in certain areas, like in the dorm, just hanging out.
Yeah, exactly. But I mean, like, yeah. But I think when you're in public, it's polite to speak what everyone else speaks as well. But when you're in private, do what you want to do. It makes you comfortable.
Never got a question. One actually clarification. You said I think in 2050 that Hispanics would become the majority in this country.
Yeah, they would no longer be a majority. They would be they would be the
Not just like the biggest minority, but some majority.
The majority, yeah. Like, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah. And there's I use that because there's multiple studies that say, 2043, 2047, but I just said 2050 to be safe because the studies are conflicting on that point.
Okay. And then, a couple questions. Do you think, first of all, sort of a bigger picture and then more Mercersburg local, do you think we have the resources as a country to offer high-quality bilingual education to everyone? If Hispanics are going to become a majority and some of them are going to need bilingual education, do you think as a country we're prepared to offer that?
Well, if given the scenario, if we pretend it's 2050, I don't know if bilingual education is necessary for everyone. I mean, if Hispanics do become the majority, then I think Spanish will have as equal stance as English, and of course everyone will want to speak English and Spanish, but I don't think it'll be necessary to speak both. I mean, if we assume that there'll be a large concentration along the southern border of Hispanic speakers, then I mean that's probably going to be a majority Spanish-speaking area, and you'll probably want to speak Spanish when you're there as much as you want to speak English when you're in Maine, just as a career issue and just getting along in life. But I don't know if English is gonna hold the same clout in 2050 as it does now.
So we might not even need to offer a bilingual.
Well, I think we might need to offer it, but I don't know if it's going to need to be as a requirement as it is now. Because I think then there's going to be equal opportunities in English as there are in Spanish. So if you want to just speak one language, you can get by. But I mean, of course, you'll have more opportunities if you speak both. And so I think it's going to be optional, but I don't know if we have the infrastructure to make it a public education thing, unless Bernie wants to speak that up.
Can I piggyback on that question?
Yeah.
What was the red tape or the obstacles that you read about when reading about places that are trying to implement bilingual education, or even with thinking about Chambersburg, right? Because I know that you were sort of thinking about that at one point.
Yeah.
Even though it was sort of difficult for you to get into the school system and talk to people you needed to talk to.
Well, the major one is basically no one can get the legislation passed to make bilingual education a thing. I mean, the state legislatures are now mostly Republican controlled. As we have a Democratic president, the legislatures usually shift to the other side. That's what happens every election season. But I think that's the major issue. I think California was the only state that's been able to pass this pretty much comprehensive bilingual education thing, and they still require a waiver to sign, which doesn't really do much, because if your parents want you to take bilingual education, they're not gonna not let you, especially if you only speak Spanish and they know they want you to learn English, they're not gonna not sign the form. But I think it's just kind of a thing that the legislature put up here to make it a little bit of a roadblock. But for other states like Pennsylvania, I think Pennsylvania is like a purple state, but I think it's still going to be hard to get that passed, especially with all around the world now is this wave of like xenophobia, and like everyone's scared of other cultures and stuff right now. So I think that's going to be especially hard to do anything like that right now. That's not in a completely democratic controlled state, if I'm going to be a little bit stereotypical.
You're saying xenophobia?
Yeah.
Okay, can you define that? I don't know if I've ever heard.
Okay, so xenophobia basically it's when you're pretty much afraid of other cultures and you want to keep your culture pretty much pure. There's been waves of xenophobia, as in the 1940s in Nazi Germany, we define that as xenophobia. And there's a lot going on around the world. You see some xenophobia in Europe right now with the migrant immigration. People kind of want to close up and isolate themselves from other cultures and just keep their culture the same as it's always been and block everyone else out. So that's how I define xenophobia.
Thanks for the comments from the international students in the book. Those are actually really useful. I'm wondering if you got the sense in your research with them or talking to them, did anyone feel like having international students come back or come to school for their first year a little early, like a couple days early for a special orientation? I know some schools do that. Did anyone give you a sense that that might be useful?
Someone actually asked that in during Jude's Springtalk, but I think, at least Jude as an international student, he said he thinks it would be helpful for some people, but not for others. I think it would just be a personal thing, but also I don't know, personally I don't know if that's going to help. I don't know if I'm in a position to speak, but I don't think that would be helpful, because if you have just international students on campus, the deal is to get them acclimated. So I think it's best to just have everyone here at the same time and get everyone put together. But then again, on the other hand, you do have everyone from every culture, so I guess it would be getting them acclimated to different cultures early. But I can see both sides of that coin, but I didn't get a sense from anyone, that's just my personal opinion.
So two things. One, I love that. I want to slip that in my bag too. I just think it's great to read off the comments because there's such wisdom there. I wonder though if the whole notion is you're advocating promoting bilingual education, whether it would be interesting to publish those comments twice, one in the native language of the student and then one in English, just so that that you can have a texture and feeling and validation of their words in both languages. And then secondly, you made a reference to students in your Chambersburg cache being locked up in ESL classrooms, which is an incredibly charged statement. So I wonder if you would say a little bit more about that, and if you ever actually visited one of those classrooms to see what they were like.
Yeah, so actually I have, when I was there, I have visited them before, because my mom's friend is an ESL teacher, so I would just hang out in her classroom sometimes. But basically, yeah, you're locked up, for lack of a better term, in this classroom because your English skills aren't proficient enough to go out and learn with all the other students that are native English speakers. But you also you're not learning enough English in that setting, just because, I mean, they're learning English just as everyone else is learning Spanish and French. And I mean, I think 4 years of Spanish or French still isn't going to get you to a point where you can be immersed in that language and learn effectively in that language, which is the issue, which is why I think that there needs to be a different method to teach English, bilingual education, as far as just trying to teach them English for 4 years and they don't get any other subjects. They're just trying to learn English so they can be reintroduced to the normal student population, but then also they don't get to learn anything, and they usually drop out because why would you stay in if you're not learning anything? You're not learning English either. So.
I imagine in San Francisco this is not too complicated because most Spanish speaking students in San Francisco, I imagine there's a large population of Chinese students.
Yeah.
So they would need multiple bilingual
right?
Yeah, they do. They have Spanish, they have Chinese, and they have Korean Mandarin Chinese and Korean. And they use all three. And you don't have to be just a speaker of, let's say, Korean to go in this. You can be just full-fledged, only speak English, and you can join one of these programs where you'll be alongside your peers that are Korean or Chinese or whatever, and you'll learn their language as they learn yours. And then it works in the opposite direction too. By the 6th grade, you'll be proficient in their language. Just because that's also because when you start so early, when you start in kindergarten, that's that critical acquisition period where you have to learn the language and you can learn it very quickly and very well to fluency. So that's why it's critical to get in there early. But yeah, they have many programs, and it's different schools in the district. Let's say they have like 100 schools in the district, elementary, middle schools, and high schools. They'll be spread out which schools teach Korean, which schools teach Chinese, and which schools teach Spanish. And you can enroll your child in any of those schools, and they can be bused to that school. So yeah.
I think the booklet's like very good. Is it okay if I ask a suggestion?
Yeah.
I think it would be good if like I think all the quotes and everything are good, but I think it would be even more useful if the quotes were like grouped with like a heading, so like maybe like international students on homesickness or like on relationships like that, so that if they like ever need to just like quickly like I don't know, they're like having a really bad day and they just want to like flip through it, they know where to go.
Yeah, I think, but we might need more quotes before we get to that point, because I think we might have 10 quotes that are only one category, and I think that's just going to be one heading, one quote. It's going to be a little. But I think once we get to like 50, we have 31 right now. Once we get to 50 or 60, that could be worth proving for sure. Yeah.
Is that the goal? Maybe that's like
I think so. I mean, if we can get it, I don't know how we want to do it, but my goal is that it would be like added onto every year, and they could offer their suggestions every year, and they can be added to the book. And so yeah.
So were there any particular like dominant themes that you noticed in talking to the students, things that they really wish they could, like themes in the advice that they were giving, like the homesickness, or ways that they found helped them assimilate?
I think the big one was language, which basically a lot of people said, you're going to be nervous because you've never been fully versed in English probably before, unless you're from the United Kingdom. And then, but so that was the big one. But also another one was just basically not a warning, but like kind of warning about how Americans are and like what you're going to do. They were like, punctuality. And then someone was like, don't try to kiss their cheek when you first meet them, and like don't stand too close to them or something. Yeah, just things like that about what's like considered normal in our culture, pretty much.
The sarcasm.
The sarcasm was one. Yeah. Someone said like, I used to think sarcasm was rude, but now I think it's funny or something like that.
Okay.
So yeah, so that was the big two things: the language one about how to be not nervous and just to speak, and just that's how you get better. And then the one about the 4 warnings about American culture.
So as a dorm dean, what can we do to help our international students in the first week or so of school before classes start?
Yeah, well, were you at Jude's presentation? I forget. So I think that was a good idea. But also, I think the booklet is a good way to just get everyone up to speed and feel that they're part of the community. But also, apart from what everyone's already doing, I'm not really sure, because I feel like everyone gets into the mix pretty well with preseason, and you get to know your peers pretty quickly. So I think Mercersburg has done a good job of that with everyone. But as far as concentrating on international students, I think the Culture Buddy program might be a good idea, and also just the booklet as a little reference guide. I think that would make their experience so much better in the first month. Yeah.
You're not done. Before the school year ends, do you think that you and Jude could have conversations about culture and sort of how these two things can be shored up in terms of implementation for fall of 2016?
Yes.
Yeah. I'm so glad to hear that.
somebody,
Yeah.
so if it wants to be continued, it can,
Mhm.
like, just a file.
Yeah, I talked with Mr. Whitworth, and he said that we don't have any printing things on campus, that they use Mercersburg printing as well. So if we wanted to actually do that, if we want to offer up some money, Ms. Hallie from
You might think about
We
this.
can see what we can do.
Yeah.
You might also think about this in digital form, right?
Yeah,
You might really also consider this digitally, so then if the notion of adding on to it year after year could be more feasible, maybe it could be a link, isn't there an international section on the website? So a link from the website to a digital copy of the book.
I don't know if it's something we want to make completely public though. Do you know what I mean? Like, because some of the quotes can be a little edgy as far, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So some of them can be a little edgy, so I don't know if we want to make everything completely public, because some people might take it the wrong way, even though it's meaning well and for other international students.
If you can get 50 or 60 quotes and put them in themes, I'll cover the printing costs.
Wait a second, no, well, we could share.
We have an option.
That's pretty good. Right, too.
I'll have them as students for all new international students.
I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, thank you. So, yeah, I think we have a good thing going, and now that hopefully I can get some people that didn't contribute before, because I mean there's still 60 people out there that haven't contributed yet. So I think
Yeah.
I sent them one email, but we'll send another email and see how many people this time.
Yeah.
No lunch table.
Old school.
We'll go around with the lunch.
It's
Yeah.
the lunch table thing.
Yeah, get the lunch.
Do you think this will be something that you give to them before the school year begins, or like when you get ready?
I think inbound. I think that'd be a good thing to have in inbound, especially if we have. Yeah, I think it would be a good thing to have it inbound, just because new students get here a couple days early anyway. So I think it would be a good thing, just when they're down at Noldy and they have that little like welcome packet. I think it would be a good thing to have in there for international students. Yeah.
Many of these are not directly to written to.
Yeah.
Students do have differences are new students, and many of them do get homesick, and I can see
Yeah,
where
for sure.
a lot of these would be helpful. Even just knowing that, the upperclassmen talked about being homesick themselves. Often helps
I think,
them.
yeah. So actually, I think one of the things I was considering is also adding the year of like the person in it, which I think could
Yeah.
So that's one thing I can do. But yeah, I think that there could definitely be, I mean, there's no reason there can't be another resource just for all students, like a little Mercersburg type booklet. But yeah.
Great.
Okay, thank you everyone.